Bingo Blitz rules.
If your bingo has ads in it,
That's not a bingo.
if it doesn't have the coolest tournaments, mini games, and the most breathtaking design,
Nope, not a bingo.
if your bingo moment makes you feel so excited that you just want to burst in joy and scream out loud, bingo! Sorry, so you're playing...
Bingo Blitz? Now that's a bingo. Go for a world of excitement with Bingo Blitz, the #1 free bingo game. Download Bingo Blitz and play for free.
Now that's a bingo.
This episode is brought to you by Skinny Pop Popcorn. Perfectly popped, endlessly delicious. Oh, so light and crunchy. Skinny Pop Original Popcorn is the snack you've been searching for. Made with just 3 simple ingredients: popcorn kernels, sunflower oil, and salt. Snacking never felt or tasted so good. Perfectly popped, endlessly delicious. Give yourself permission to snack and pick up Skinny Pop Original Popcorn today.
Let's hang out.
Let's hang out.
And let's talk about what lessons about.
Let's hang out.
And let's listen to 2 lesbians shout.
Let's hang out.
Let's hang out.
Welcome to Les Hangout, a podcast about all things lesbian with your 2 lovely lesbian hosts.
From the West Coast, I'm Lee Holmes Foster.
And from the East Coast, I'm Ellie Brigida, and this is episode 7, How to Date Her.
And this episode, we are so excited to have with us here Robyn, who's the CEO and founder of Her. For those who aren't familiar with Her, it's an app that helps lesbian, bisexual, and queer people to find and to meet each other.
Yes. Thank you so much for meeting with us tonight, Robyn.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. First of all, tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background.
Yeah, so I am the CEO and founder of Her. My background is British, mainly, as you can tell by the accent, but I was actually born in Canada and then grew up in the UK, just outside of London. I graduated from university, lived in London, loved my life there, worked in branding and marketing. And 2 of my friends came out. They'd actually been in a secret relationship for a while. And they revealed it to our friendship group. And this was when I was like 22, 23, I think. I started like just going to queer bars with them the whole time and going on like cool clubbing nights and started making out with girls and started dating girls and was like, cool, this is an exciting thing for me. Yeah. And I started joining some dating websites to meet other people. And I found that it was a really bad experience. And I was in my day job actually working with a dating business and decided that in my naivety that despite learning very little about the dating industry, I definitely knew enough to quit my job and start to build something that I thought was a really great product to help women meet each other. And so that's what I've been doing for the past nearly 6 years of my life.
So that process of, the jump from this is something that I should be doing to like actually making it happen, what was that like?
It was quite a gradual process, to be honest. I was kind of just playing around with stuff and playing around with ideas, and I was still working at the agency and used to like make PowerPoint presentations and think about things of like grand ideas of how to build massive brand that would do this well. And then I kind of started getting into it. I started like discovering the London tech scene. I met some really amazing, great people that were really inspiring, and it kind of hooked me into it more. The idea, not so much of just like creating this, a dating platform, but more about like understanding a user and what their problems were and building something that would help address those problems. When I really started getting into it, I was like, okay, I need money to do this, or I need to find a co-founder. And so I started like taking on extra jobs. I started learning to code. I started like doing a huge amount of like research and testing. And I think it took me about a year probably in total, like maybe 6 months to a year, to build up the like funds that I needed to quit my job and to finally do it full time. And I quit my job the day that I submitted the first version of the first app that I built to Apple.
Amazing. This is very cool.
That is amazing.
Talking about online dating in general, why do you think that online dating is so popular in the lesbian community? Even before this app was created, right, you started going online. And why do you think that lesbians turn to online dating apps?
I mean, if you think about the specifics, and, obviously before apps, it was the interwebs in general. Which probably like in its first forms was like forums. And then prior to that, I think for LGBTQ people, it was probably like dating agents or individuals who would use like phone books and different ways to help people meet each other, like matchmakers, basically. Which I think, is very much like a logistics reason. So, to meet people before that, it was pretty much like the gay bar or maybe a sports team. But some kind of like, a rugby team or roller derby team. But some kind of like,
great.
a rugby team or roller derby, I think it's always been like a popular space. Yeah, but there were these like physical places that you would go to meet other people. And the actual logistics of doing that were quite cumbersome. Like there's a lot of planning involved. There's money often involved. There's like a lot of risk involved on a personal level of like, fear of who am I going to talk to? Who am I going to meet? How is this going to work? And I think that also the frequency in which it happened, right? Like there were lesbian bars all across the world, like definitely more than there are now. And that's because that was the main way to meet other people. They weren't like pumping every night of the week, and so it was the odds of the luck that you would meet someone on that night, that you went out, that they went out to that bar, same place, same time, that you would then talk to them, that then it would work out to a successful relationship, and like pretty rough odds. And I think what's great about the internet, and this is not just in like dating or in queer dating, but across everything, is that it completely has pulled down so many barriers that the real world created before that. And so the accessibility, the volume, the way that you can like explore ideas and yourself and have conversations with other people without having to leave your bedroom was hugely beneficial for LGBTQ people.
Well, and I think especially, particularly for, lesbians, for queer people, I think if you weren't in one of those spaces, if you weren't in a queer space, if you weren't at the roller derby, that it did, those odds also then change drastically in terms of like, oh my God, am I going to fall for another straight girl? Is this going to go horribly wrong? And I think, that a lot of that goes away online as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like a self-defining space, and you're like, I think before Her existed, I think one of the main places where lesbians and queer people used to meet each other was Tumblr. It was like a way of finding those accounts that's like girls who like girls, and it's like, cool, clear labeling, I'm in the right spot, this is it for me. And I think it's just like creating those dedicated spaces have been, well, first of all, it was very overdue for our community, but secondly, like super needed.
Yeah, for sure. In terms of dating online specifically, like on apps, because I think there is, there has been a pretty stark change, I think, from, what you're talking about with things like Tumblr, all of these old school interwebsy places to meet, to like apps now, where it's kind of like a streamlined process. What do you think are some of the keys to like a good dating profile?
Ooh, good profile. So I think that the keys are, and this is purely like based on data, but I think there is nothing more valuable than a good profile picture. And it's kind of scary to some extent. Like, you don't want to overthink it. You don't want to feel too like ego driven by like taking so long to pick a photo. Some people get worried about like, oh God, this isn't exactly what I look like. I don't want to be misleading. But literally the best photo that you can find that has ever been taken, put that as your profile picture.
We're already the selfie generation, aren't we?
Yeah. Well, I think like dating myself and like going on dating apps, I feel like you literally are like, okay, here's one picture where I look really good. Here's another picture where I look like I'm a cool girl who has fun and laughs and has friends. Like, there's so many different like pictures you put, and like, this is something that shows I'm carefree and I travel, I'm in a new place.
Here's my quirky Snapchat filter.
There's so many different types of pictures that you put.
Yeah. But the reason the profile picture is so important is whether like it's Her or Tinder or Bumble or whatever, like 70% of those decisions get made just from that one picture. They don't even go into it. They don't even look. So as much as you add all these other ones, like it's only 30% that are even going to look if they say yes to it, like that first one. And it means like spending probably a dedicated afternoon of just posing. Like, we're meant to be like the selfie generation, but I still feel super uncomfortable doing it. I think I look like I don't know, I get like paranoid taking selfies. I'll be like in the back of a taxi like, oh God, I can't do this, it's too cringe. But like you get your hair done, you get a photo taken, like do it that day because that's when it looks the best, and like use that picture.
I feel like we're regressing as humans though. If it's like you start, like I feel like you start right as like kids and then you like learn to read and you like graduate from picture books, and now it's like, nope, we're going back. Like no one wants the words. We just want to like, I want to see your face. I want to make a decision, and that's it.
Yeah. But that's, I mean, words are hard. Words are really hard. Like there's many of them. Pictures is like,
too many words.
Just one instant to grab.
The first picture on my dating profile is literally a headshot, like a professional headshot. Literally.
That's, perfect.
Yeah.
Great.
Like the best
That's
picture.
Worst things you can do. Amazing. Like worst things you can do, basically I'd say like what not to do. No sunglasses, no group shots. It's not that a group is bad. It's just that they think you can't even make the effort to just put a photo of yourself on. Like, I'm not going to be bothered to look into this. I got like 20,000 other people to make my way through. Like, you're just a no for now. So, like, you put on the best headshot that you have of yourself.
So do a little more work than just scrolling through your existing photo album. Take a new one.
What if people actually get past the picture? What are like some things that people want to know in the actual profile?
I think what's interesting, and I only know like small parts about like male dating behavior from like other friends that run dating businesses that do both audiences. But I think something that is very different is that women, particularly when they're looking at a dating profile, are looking for the reason to say no a lot of the time. It's like they're really overanalyzing all of this information. Number one, kind of like projecting everything about this person, as in like, what are we going to talk about when we meet up? Do like from all this stuff, all these like pictures that you're sharing of yourself, like looking interesting and creative, whatever. I'm like, how's this conversation going to work out? Like, is this the kind of person I want to meet up with? Which is virtually impossible to tell from those photos, but we overanalyze it. And then they're also like looking for the picture where it's like, I knew that's what you really look like. Like I was looking for it, and like now I found it. That's the reason. So because of that, I actually always suggest to friends, like, put a photo on that is a photo that's not as good as the others, but still looks good. Like the one that makes people go, okay, that's the worst that you can look, and I see that's what you really look like, but I'm still into it.
It's like having a safety school. It's like it's like your safety photo.
Yeah. Exactly. And then I think it's, you know, the really important stuff, you've got to like give these other people like a hand in the sense of what are you going to talk about when you get that match to start the conversation. And, you know, if you're on her, you can add a text item that you can either say basically like, ask me about this. Like it just means that they will ask you about it and they'll feel a bit uncreative, but at least they kind of know something to lead in with. Or anything that like, you know, like when you're traveling, like great photos. They'll be like, oh, cool, you went to like Paris. How was it? Like something that makes it easy. Like animals are a really great way for that because people go, oh, your dog's so cute. So like animals, traveling, food, super popular. Like, yeah, things that make it easy to talk to each other.
Yeah, that sort of brings us to our next part. Once you start the conversation, what are some good tips for starting a conversation or keeping conversation going while you're talking to someone on a dating app?
We believe one of the best openers that you can ever send to someone is, do you want to play a game?
That's like kind of Saw-ish though,
I mean,
isn't it?
you have to figure out the game later. Yeah, a little Saw-esque, you know, we'll like entice them or completely get them to block you. But if it is you want to play like a game, normally it would be like call 2 truths and a lie, or would you rather, or never ever, or whatever. But like it's a very easy one that's like tempting enough that you're like, okay, yeah, all right, go on then. Hey is the worst. Don't
I
just
hate
send hey.
Hays. I will never answer
terrible.
hey. Like you put no effort in. No.
You're better off sending nothing. Do you want to play a game is good because you're not going straight into would you rather, which can feel a little bit intense. Like, oh, this person's playing a game. You kind of like get the permission before you do it. But otherwise, like generally things that people don't have to think too hard about. Like if you ask them like, what has been the happiest moment of your life? People panic a bit about that. Like, oh my God, what does this convey about me? Like, how am I going to make sure I sound cool and interesting and good? And they panic and then almost like don't reply. I think like asking things either directly about a profile where it's like, look, you put this information on here because you probably want me to ask you about it, or stuff that's almost like, Oh, I love looking at your tattoo. Like, do you have any others, or where did you get it done? Like things that are kind of more like factual based questions. It's much easier to reply to those just to get the conversation going. Mm-hmm. And that's always the hardest bit. It's just to start. And I think particularly with our community and our user base, like once they start talking, they are good. Like conversations last long. It's just getting it going in the first place. It's the harder bit.
I feel like I keep flashing to that, like the Master of None episode where he starts everyone with like, going to Whole Foods, do you want me to pick you anything up? That's like his go-to line.
I realized this the other day because I did this. You can copy and paste into dating apps. You can copy and paste what you say.
Yeah.
And I did this because I did basically market research about our podcast. Yeah,
sure.
Market
in quotations.
on her. And I would send people, I would be like, hey, I have this podcast. Here's called Les Hangout. Would you mind if I asked you some questions about the podcast? And it started conversations with a lot of people. Honestly, too many people, and I couldn't keep up.
Yeah.
It's like a great humble brag too, right?
But it also is a really good, it's like, it is exactly our market. Like everyone on that dating app could listen to this podcast. So I was like, hey.
And then what I love about it is like,
Two birds.
even if it doesn't work out, like you dating them, it's like not a wasted opportunity, you know? It's great.
I feel like everyone stresses out quite a lot about like the implications of having a conversation. And it's like, there are literally zero implications. Like having a little chat with someone online is cool. It's kind of interesting. Like it could be someone that you might like see again. You might never see them again. Like it could be someone in another country, someone who's traveling. Like just say hi to people. Yeah. It's a nice thing to do. You don't have to marry
It's like
them.
replying to a Twitter comment, right? Like, yeah, you're not like buying engagement rings.
Well, we're lesbians, so I don't know.
Yeah, I replied to your Twitter comment. We live together now. That's fun fact. We talked about this a little bit already, but I think it's worth diving into a little bit more because I feel like there are differences, right, in terms of like online dating culture, like queer online dating versus like dreaded straight online dating, which I hear about in stories. But like, you know, like we have a lot of friends. Like as we've said on this podcast before, we have straight friends, and I listen to them talk about dating online, and it sounds horrible to date guys because it's. I feel like it's a very different ballgame trying to do that with girls versus guys. Like, what do you think are some of the other differences, you know, in terms of like what that looks like and what to expect?
There's two sides. One, I'm bisexual, so I date both guys and girls, so I can talk about it from a user perspective. But also there's like the data perspective of what we know from friends.
You are the information we need right now. What's the difference?
Yeah. So I think like main differences are guys can be very intentional with what they're looking for. They're quite clear, particularly on like the casual side, and I'm thinking about that within like the gay male landscape. Like they're very clear about an outcome that they're looking for, and they will take a number of steps to get to that point. It just means that it is a much more active market. There's like a lot more like conversation. There's probably a lot faster responses. It happens in a much shorter time frame. Like we did a big data exchange with Grindr, just in terms of like you know, how long does it take to meet up with someone? How long do conversations last for? And I can't remember off the top of my head the exact numbers, but it was like the average time it takes between a Grindr user messaging each other for the first time and when they meet up is like 3.5 hours. And for us, it's like 7.5 days. It's like a completely, and you know, I think it's interesting to compare gay guy apps and her because it's like you get this kind of similar behavior, but like magnified significantly. And I think, you know, the straight products or the mainstream ones that cater to everyone kind of sit somewhere in the middle of that. So I think that, you know, another really big difference for us is most of our users are really happy to get another outcome from using her, which is a friendship. We have like 20% of our users aren't even single. They're in a relationship and they're using it for the community aspects and elements because they want to meet other queer people. Like they want to know what events are happening in their city. They want to know like if they're traveling, what's going on. They want to meet other couples to go for dinner with or to go to see like, you know, Tegan and Sarah when they come to town. Like, you know, they want like people want to have other queer people in their life. And that isn't something that happens so much on straight products because it's not like an integral part of people's identity where they seek other people like themselves. And that is something that we experience on her. And so because of that, there's a duality in the usership. There's not that clear intention that guys, particularly gay guys, can often have about, I know what I want to get out of it. Our users are like, I want quite a few things out of this, and I'm kind of happy with all of them. So I have a slightly more like browsing based behavior of like, yeah, I'll have a look, I'll come back to it, I'll come in, come out, like start a few conversations, come back to some others later, like really like moving their way around it.
Maybe I want a date. Maybe I just want to know where the roller derby is tonight.
Exactly. And maybe I'll meet someone to do that. And then the last thing, and this is again just like from conversations with other friends that run dating apps, like women are just like generally a lot nicer and nicer to each other. Like, you know, like things can escalate occasionally, right? Like we can all like get the claws out and especially in our like social and community space, if someone says like post a controversial like question and, you know, that people don't agree with the responses, that like conversation can get heated. But generally like, we don't have to deal with vag shots very often. Like they just don't get sent that much. And like dick pics and pics of people's buttholes get sent probably every like 1 in every 5 photos, probably more. Like, you know, it's a lot. Yeah. And we just don't have that. And that's not to say that one is better than the other. I think that you share the photos of what's right for you in your community. Like that's not what her is about. But I think what's interesting is that there's something else in the way that people often speak to each other. And I don't know if it's men or if it's the like culture inside different apps, but like sometimes people speak to each other in a really unpleasant way. Like they, in fact, actually BuzzFeed made this video where one of the gay guys on the team and one of the lesbians on the team, they swapped dating apps and used each other's dating profiles and they compared the experience. And the guy who was using her was just like, I can't believe it. Everyone's just so nice. Like, I didn't reply to this girl for 6 hours and she didn't tell me to go F myself because I was like treating her like crap. Like, she was just like, oh, no worries. I hope your day was okay. Like, you know, this kind of like really different experience. So I imagine it's very different. It seems like it's very different.
I think it just reflects the differences in dating period, like straight dating and queer dating. Like, me and one of my straight friends were at a bar one night and it was like both of us were getting texts for what would be considered a booty call. Yeah. But like her texts were like disgusting. and like the texts that I were getting were like, oh, like it'd be really nice if you could come over. You know what I mean? Like so like
I've got some ice cream and a bottle of red wine. And like,
yeah.
Like,
yeah, like we can cuddle.
Well, and you're saying like how much nicer women are. Like, I'm curious, you know, you said you had the data in terms of like how long does it take you to meet up, you know, like gay guys versus like gay girls. I'm so curious, like what's the difference between how long it takes people to like shut it down? Because I feel like girls would be like so kind and gentle and like let you down like slowly over like a number of days.
Yeah, I actually.
Whereas I feel like guys are just like, oh, you're not coming over tonight? Like, well, you know, screw you, bitch, bye. Like,
do you know what? We haven't looked at that. And like my gut feeling would be it's kind of rare for women to shut it down. Like whether they're like, I might come back to this later or like, I don't want to hurt her feelings. Like,
yeah,
probably
or
just,
maybe
like,
we'll be besties, you know.
Out. But yeah, no, we haven't looked at that. I'll be interested to see.
You're gonna run that study and
yeah,
100%. Let us know. But I'm also curious about when you have like queer communities, do you think things like her, like I can't decide if I think it improves like the small world issue, right? Because I think that's something that like we all know in like queer spaces of being like, it's a smaller population, you know, and it's like you tend to get that whole problem of like, we've all dated all of each other and like this is it, this is the little world. Like, do you think it makes that better because it like opens up, you know, like maybe someone outside of your friend group, or does it kind of make it worse because you're just always looking at the same people on the app?
I personally think it definitely makes it better. I think that it was just, if I think about like my friendship group, like the frequency that someone new came in was not that often. And realistically, like the friendship group used to change every time someone dated someone new. That would like bring them into the group. And then sometimes they'd bring along maybe a friend or like, it would kind of open up a bit and then a breakup would happen and then the group would fracture and then it would kind of like start again. But I think that happens with like dating apps working, that happens a lot more frequently because there's a higher volume of people coming through. And I think it just gives you like more options. I think like that kind of like overlapping with friends will always happen. Like proximity, like emotional closeness, like relatability, like that will always happen within like queer female groups. But I think that now you have more options when you are really frustrated with that. When you're like, I'm just tired of like everyone screwing each other and I just want to get out. And it's cool because you open an app and you are out. Like you can find a date 2 days later and it makes you feel a lot better and not this like overwhelming like claustrophobia of like what options do I really have.
So the app has been around for a while. So people have met each other and I'm sure people have continued those relationships. So could you tell us a little bit about some of the success stories of people who have met on the dating app and some of your favorite stories?
So many. And we actually now have a hashtag, which is We Met on Her. And you can use that on Instagram just to see the stories that people post about partners that they met. I don't know how many marriages we've had now and babies and like, and friendships and friendship groups that have formed out of this. And like that, I think is always amazing. Like if people were dating or they went to one of our parties and they met a group of people and that's now their main like kind of social group. I don't know why, but I'm a big sucker for the long distance. And I love like reading about people that met like cross country and then travel a few times and part of it scares the hell out of me and I'm like, are you crazy? You like just went for it? Because I'm so like, I can't imagine doing that. But I don't know, it's like a great kind of romance, I think, inside of it. So long distance ones I really love. And I love, there's this like couple, I can't remember their name, but they post on Instagram a lot. And we'll talk about her, but they're travel bloggers. And so they met on Her, but now they just share these amazing pics of them as this super cute couple, like traveling all around the world and all these like great.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. And as we head into Thanksgiving time, I want to start by thanking my wife, Kelsey, who has not only listened to just about every episode of this podcast for 8 seasons now, but who also is the only reason I'm able to make time to record it every week. She takes the kids, gets them dinner, and gets them ready for bed just so that Ellie and I can come on and yell about gay things into each other's faces for an hour. So here's a reminder to send some thanks to the people you're grateful for in your life, including yourself. I've been in therapy for a long time now, and one thing that's so important about therapy is how it teaches you to be more intentional. And being intentional about gratitude and how to show that to the people you appreciate is just one of the many benefits that I've gotten from therapy over the years. If you've been thinking of starting therapy, consider giving BetterHelp a try. I know how hard it can be to find time for regular therapy, and BetterHelp is designed to be flexible and convenient for your schedule. You can fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. If you want to start being more intentional about gratitude in your life, visit betterhelp.com/letshangout today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/letshangout.
Let's hang out.
For many businesses, the holiday season can be both an exciting and stressful time. With so many balls in the air, one thing you definitely want to know you can rely on is how you're selling your products. And with Shopify, you can rest easy knowing it's the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Nobody does selling better than Shopify. And when it comes to successful brands like Aloe, Allbirds, or Skims, an often overlooked secret is all the things that go on behind the scenes that make selling, and for shoppers, buying, simple. For millions of businesses, if you take a peek behind that curtain, you'll see that Shopify is what makes it all possible. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, so that's more happy customers and way more sales going. It's true all the time, but especially this time of year, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling, on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout we use for Realm merch with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/realm, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/realm to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/realm.
What's up, guys? It's the champ, Sean O'Malley, here to talk to you about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to win real money while watching football. Run your game on Prize Picks.
PrizePicks will give you $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Just download the PrizePicks app and use code SPOTIFY. That's code SPOTIFY on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play a $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
What's up, everyone? It's Noah Daniels.
Hey, y'all. I'm JJ.
Hey, guys, it's Kat.
And we're your hosts of the Real Hauntings podcast, where we bring on guests to share their first-hand encounter ghost stories and supernatural experiences. Now on to the trailer.
I've been warned to not tell this story, but I think because of the way it ends, it's okay to tell this story, because some people say that with certain entities, to like speak of them or talk about them or in any way like portray them as powerful will attract them to other people. The creepiest thing about it to me is a lot of times it would wait for me to notice it. Like it would just lay its arm out like this, and then I'd be like, where is it? Where is it? And then I'd see it, and then it would just slither back.
For more information on the Real Hauntings, Real Ghost Stories podcast, make sure you check out real.fm to learn more about our podcast and many other amazing podcasts.
Places.
Is it weird, like, is it, as the person who started the app, is it weird to be like, that's because of me, like, that's because of a thought I had in the shower one day, you know?
Sometimes it feels a bit detached. Like, I think in the very early days, I was like, oh my God, we made this thing and it's happened, and now, like, you got laid because of it. That's awesome. Now, like, I think it's because, like, what I want us to do with her, or, like, where I want it to go is so much bigger. I want it to provide so much value beyond what we're doing now, that I'm like, I know that it works for meeting other people, and that is brilliant. And now I want us to like build on that and create even more with what we can do. It is, I'm so happy about it, and I don't really relate it to me, because it's like, it's such a big team of us, like whether that's like people that have, you know, volunteered throughout the company's history, or people who worked with us 3 years ago to help start it, or, you know, people who work on the team now. Like, it's taken such a group effort to get it to this point. It doesn't feel like it's me. It feels like something that we're all trying to achieve for like each other and for the world, which sounds super cheesy, but like it is kind of how I feel. It took a lot of people to get to this point, but now I just want it to do so much more.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like also like, as, you know, like as someone who's the CEO and like runs a dating app, it feels like it hasn't like turned you off online dating. Like, it sounds like you still date online. Do you think it like, does it change your perspective on it, like coming at online dating from like knowing all of the behind the scenes and like seeing so much of like the data and the everything going into it?
Do you feel like you are an expert at dating because you are this?
I'm a professional dater.
I like, if I was really focused, yeah, I reckon I could boss it. I think my problem is like
sounds like a challenge, ladies.
But like, well, that's, just to be clear, that's the online part, not the in-person part. That's where it kind of really like gets taken out of my control. I think that like I mean for the first like 4 years of the company, I probably went on like 3 dates the whole time. Like, was spending so much time like starting this and building it, and kind of gave everything up to do it. And now like this year I've like just started dating people again. The problem is I have to like focus and be like, Robyn, go like 100 profiles, like deal with that part of it and then convert it later. But yeah, I think like there are general like patterns and behaviors that you can work out how to use to make that conversation more likely. Number 1, say yes to more people. The more we say yes to, the more likely you are to have a conversation, the more likely that is to turn to a date.
Number 2, look for their safety photos. We all know the secrets now. There's no hiding.
Yeah. Well, number 2, send them a message. If you match, send a message. Don't just leave it.
So we talked a little bit earlier. You were talking about making her bigger and expanding your audience. So it started as a dating app, and now we were talking a little bit about how you have a lot of couples on the app, which I think is really interesting. Actually, the first time that I ever downloaded the app, I was in a monogamous relationship. And one of my friends was her ambassador, and she messaged me and she was like, you should really check out this app. And I was like, it seems like a dating app. But then she obviously convinced me that you have this whole newsfeed aspect and the events aspect. So when did you start, and like how did you get to the point where you rebranded to be this queer community rather than just a dating app?
So the first app that we had was a different app, which is called Datch, and it was very, very dating driven. And I think it was mainly based off of feedback from our users. And it was this kind of thing of like really trying to understand the problems that our users have and how we could address them. And generally something that we found was that people, this like multi-outcome desire of like, yes, I want to meet someone that I am like sexually attracted to that might turn into something dating related. But I equally value meeting someone that can become a friend who I might be able to go to a bar with. I want to know when I travel what's happening in a place. Like there were all these things that were happening inside of the app and inside of the like a community, but we were not doing anything to help it or make it easily accessible. When we released Her, it always had a social component from day one. And then with the events, I'd been trying to work out what kind of events were right for us quite early on, like still in the Dutch days. And I think that's because one, events were really important to me. Like, as I said, I used to go to these like dance parties with my two les mates, and they completely changed. Like, I figured myself out through those parties. And I remember so much like the first time I went to it, and the energy that you have with a bunch of queer people, queer women in a room is very unique, and it is amazing. And I think that maybe that just like etched on my brain as like, this is really valuable. But I also think that like the feeling of an in-person meeting is hugely impactful. And as a business, I wanted us to like help create that. And we had people that wanted to meet up. It made sense to not just do it one-on-one, but to actually create a space to do it in groups. And so we spent a long time trying to work out like how we do that. And I think, we'll always carry on like figuring out more and improving it and trying new things. But yeah, now we run events in 27 cities across the world in 5 countries. And each event is normally somewhere between like 200 and 1,500 people. And we run about 8 events per month.
In terms of like, so as like I'm married, right? So like in terms of couples, like what we did like dating tips, right? Like what are your tips for like people who want to check out the app, who are in relationships, who are married, who are, like who don't want to be on a dating app, like what are your tips for sort of getting started and checking it out?
Yeah. So I think like, number one is, on Her, you can put your relationship status and whether that is coupled or married or open or whatever your relationship is, you can put that on there. And because you have fields to add as many text items as you want, like you can, put at the beginning, like, here's what we're here for. Like, this is what I mean. Like, I want friends, or I want to know where to go at the weekends that like you all like, or, what it is you want to get out of it. The feed is the main place at the moment. And it's actually somewhere where we have a lot of stuff that will be coming out in the feed next year. And so I think at the moment, you post in there and people respond to you, and that introduces you to other people. And there's going to be a lot of stuff coming out next year that helps you find the other people like you. And so for that purpose of why you joined it, you should be able to like navigate to find those other people like you.
So I'm gonna introduce our next question, which I promise there is a question at the end of it, and I'm gonna introduce it with like a long backstory, because I think what we're talking about, what we're sort of getting into right now, is a lot of like the user base outside of just like Her being a lesbian dating app. And so the background here is I've mentioned it on the podcast before. I graduated from Mount Holyoke College, and for anyone who doesn't know Mount Holyoke College, it's a women's college out in Western Massachusetts, the oldest continuing women's college. And while I was there, the policies have changed since then, but while I was there, it was interesting because we allowed trans men, so if you were transitioning female to man, but not trans women were not allowed to apply and to be admitted, which obviously was controversial, I think, with a lot of the people at the school. It was controversial with a lot of like younger alums. I think it's why they've sort of changed their policies now. And so now actually Mount Holyoke allows both trans men and trans women to attend, which is awesome. And I know it's certainly, I think anytime you're getting into identity issues, emotions tend to run high. And it's something that I know Ellie and I had seen that there was some controversy that you guys had run into during Trans Awareness Week with having a trans man host your Instagram account. And so knowing how many different options there are, like whether it's identifying your relationship status as a couple, whether it's identifying your sexuality, or identifying your gender identity, I know there's a lot of options on her for doing that. So I was wondering if you wanted to say a bit more about who is the intended user base and how do you kind of try to meet user expectations when people go on her, because I think people have a lot of, kind of ideas in their head about what to expect.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, a lot of that comes out of our name, right? Like her is a gendered name. It skews in a very strong direction. But when we first created her, it was for female identified and non-binary gendered people. So from day one, this has never been an exclusively female space. And we were very clear about that. We originally said that we weren't open to people that identified as male. So we didn't have any trans men in the app. After the first few months, we started getting feedback from members of our community who had transitioned inside of the app and were kind of saying, can I stay here? Like this, I understand it's got this strong female vibe to it. I now identify as male. Can I hang around? And at first we were like, probably not. It would be, maybe time to look at another space. And the more we had these conversations, it was clear that this community of people were so important and valuable and in the community anyway. Her was never built to exclude anyone from the queer community. The only group that we didn't want inside the app was cis men who disrupted the experience and honestly, that was my experience on the platforms that I was using before. I would get messages all the time from straight cis guys saying you haven't met the right person or come along for a threesome. And it was just it was outrageous that you had to have those conversations. It's enough that you get harassed and deal with it in everyday life. And I didn't want to, we didn't want to deal with that inside of the product. I think that people who understand our community and respect it and treat it rightly should be able to be part of our community. And so a few months after her launched, maybe about under 9 months after we launched, we opened the app up to trans men because they were part of our community. And so that's been the case for 18 months now. And I think everyone inside of the community had been aware of it. In Transgender Awareness Week, we had started the week with some content on social platforms about different transgendered people. And then we had 3 campaigns with Instagram story takeovers of different trans people. And the first one that we did was Aidan Dowling. Aidan, we had obviously told him what our company was and who was open to our community. And so he was like, this sounds rad. I'm totally up for doing it. I think that with hindsight, leading that week with a trans man was the wrong decision, which was not, Aidan's call. He wasn't aware of that. We did that because of just scheduling something he was doing that evening. So we were like, cool, you kick it off. I think the reality is that trans women have historically, currently, and repeatedly been treated much worse with a lot less acceptance, particularly in queer female spaces. And it's unfair, and there's a lot more work to do to give visibility to trans women and give them space, make them feel and know that they are welcomed and accepted and loved. And having a company like us leading with a trans woman would have been a much better and stronger way to do that. And so, we had to say sorry for Aidan for putting him in that position, and we had to say sorry to our community for not making that right call. But I think, the outtake that I would also probably share is that is who our audience is. We have trans men in this app, and we made that decision a long time ago, and we will keep it that way. And that is not at the, I completely understand the need for female-only spaces. There are a lot of people that do want female-identified only spaces, and they have an absolute right to have that. That's not what our community is. Yeah. And it has never been since the beginning. We've always had non-binary gendered people, genderqueer people. And so it was never about that. Her represents as a name the demographic that we focus on, that we really think about a lot, and we look at these unique female behaviors. We don't have to exclude other people from the community because of that. And so great, we will look at female triggers, and we'll think about telling female stories, but we don't have to exclude other parts of this queer community while we do that.
Yeah. It's funny. I feel like I forget sometimes how normal it became at Mount Holyoke. Like, I have that conversation with people since graduating all the time, that it's like obviously a huge part of that culture is it being a women's college and it being, what is kind of broadly understood as a female space. But I also went to school with some really amazing guys, and that's never, like, I feel like it just becomes such a non-issue when we're there that's the case. And there, I think, are legitimate reasons that a lot of those, people who are transitioning or have been in the process of transitioning choose that space because it is safe and it is welcoming and it is open in ways that, they're not guaranteed to find in other ways,
And I think also gender and sexuality is so not black and white, and anyone who's in our community knows that. And we actually had a question from one of our Instagram followers, CVL_1103. And
shout out to you.
And she really wanted to talk about sexuality and gender as a sliding scale, and if you guys were planning on introducing something similar to that, or how you address the wide variety of genders and sexualities that we have within our community.
Yeah, it's actually funny. We had a design out today. It wasn't about gender. Well, it was about like gender expression, and we were looking at that as a sliding scale. The way that we currently handle it inside the app, we have 23 gender identities and 16 sexualities that you can select from. And our policy is that if you get in contact with us and ask us to add another gender identity or sexuality that represents who you are, and you like want to use that to express yourself, then we will add it, and it will probably be out within the month. I think that you're totally right. It is a very a fluid thing. And so I think that, scales are a great way to kind of like visually represent that inside a product. I think what's interesting is like when people choose to update that, like, is there a moment where they're like, today this is like, if it is expression, for example, like, I like in how I dress myself, might one day have a more like androgynous style to my appearance, and other days I might choose a more femme-presenting expression. Do I choose to change that, like, as I choose to change, or do I want to choose something that represents, on average, where I choose to express? When we looked at the scales, what we ended up kind of looking at was that you almost want like two ends of the scale. So it's not that you can put one point on it and say, here's where I am. It's like, here's the breadth of where I expand to. And I think that's that's kind of our current thinking around it. And, you almost want to be able to like have like 5 points on some like crazy star dial. Like, and that might depend on where you are in life. Like, do you know for certain I identify as lesbian and I know that that's going to be the case for a long time? Or has something changed in your life where you're like, I'm pansexual, and some of my like previous dating patterns might suggest that I am more attracted to one gender than another, but that's not how I identify. I don't know. It's I think there are really interesting ways to play with it and present it. What's most important to us is that you get to share who you are, and you get to find other people like you in a way that like resonates with you and helps you meet other people that you click with.
So tell us a little bit, because we've talked about some of the other things that Her is doing in terms of having events and helping promote queer events. Tell us a little bit about how you see it trying to help evolve and help promote those types of queer spaces.
Yeah, I think, as I said, I think that they are so important. Like, they were important to me. I think they'll be important for decades to come. Currently, we have Her events, and then we have events listed in Her. So the Her events, like, often we work with, various different like queer DJs in an area, like photographers, venues, spaces. And then otherwise we list events that are taking place in the community. They're submitted by the community. So it means that if you are a queer events promoter, you can list inside Her. You can post on the event message board, any information you want to share on there. I've always thought that with events, there have always been really great events, queer events taking place. The problem has always been the discovery of them. And I always remember, is her name Leah Delaria, the Boo from Orange is the New Black? Yeah. And I remember one day seeing on Facebook that she had come to San Francisco to give a talk. I think it was about butch identity. And I found out about it 2 days afterwards. And I was like, I work in this world. And I wanted to see that. And how did I not know that this was happening? That's crazy. And so I feel like there's great stuff happening all the time, whether that's like a queer silent yoga retreat or the roller derby tournament or whatever it is. Like, just knowing that stuff is there is great to see, but also exciting to be like, cool, I could go watch a roller derby tournament.
Just keep
wicked.
on bringing back that roller derby. I think we should start our own Les Hangout roller derby.
I do love it.
Oh my god, yes.
So as for her, what's next for the app? What are you looking to in the next year?
Yeah, like in the next year, like really important for us is like making the community experience as strong as we can. So there's a lot of work that we'll be doing in the feed and in that social space. And then the rest of it is really about growth, but predominantly international growth. You know, we're big in Australia, UK, Canada, America, and we've got these new really great growing markets like Brazil, Mexico. They're almost as big as like Canada for us now. Indonesia, Philippines are really big. But there's a lot of other international places that we really want to take the product to because it's really needed. And then building out the events in those markets. So we always look for like really great, inspiring, probably slightly like bold and out there people in cities that want to produce events that kind of bring together what they think is needed in their community and what we want to do as a business and kind of combine them together. So scaling the app and scaling the events are really the main things that we're focused on at the moment.
Global her. So what we're going to do is we're going to transition into sort of the closing segment that we have here on Let's Hang Out. And it is a segment that we lovingly refer to as Q and Gay. And Q and Gay is a series of just simple question and answers. And some of them, especially now, so Ellie and I are going to ask you questions. And some of them might be a little redundant in terms of the conversation we just had, but what they also do is we put them up on our Twitter, and we also want to hear from our listeners about their answers. So what we're going to do is we are going to now ask you some Q and Gay questions.
Great.
Q and Gay.
Starting with question 1. Yes or no, have you ever been on an online date?
Yes.
I'm assuming that's a pretty straightforward one. What about you, Ellie?
Yes, I have. Lee?
Oh, I have not.
Recurring theme is that Lee's dating history is very small.
His is limited and old.
That's
so,
okay.
Yes.
So, have any of those dates led to an actual relationship for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
There's hope out there, guys.
You can do it.
Question 3, we assume you might be a little biased, but what is your favorite online dating app out of Her, Tinder, Bumble, or OkCupid?
Ooh. So I'm gonna say Her. I also love Hinge, and I love Hornet for the guys. They're some of my faves.
This is really near and dear to my heart. Are you into cider? What about the summer berry fruity ones? Yes or no?
Yes, cider is my drink. And I am a fan of the summer berry fruity ones, but actually I'm more original, like West Country, like England cider. Absolute drink of choice. Love it.
Great answer. So
I'm so glad I had you ask that, Ellie, because I don't think I can do it with this face.
Fun fact, that is one of the questions that's in the Her app.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
It's a Her icebreaker.
Honestly, a lot of those were me. So
I was reading them to Lee earlier, and that was our favorite one. So I had to ask it to you.
It's my favorite question in the world. I'm going to ask everyone I meet that question now. Are you into summer berry fruity ciders?
I also told your social media director that I love her for making up those questions. Like, they make conversations much easier.
Yeah.
And they're also, some of them are so funny. I just am like, how do you think of these things?
Like
it's amazing.
that. Like
we have a lot of fun as the team, making them up.
Question 5. Have you ever lied about having met someone online?
No.
No, not the fake meet cute story of your eyes meeting across a busy subway platform.
I've never really understood that. I mean, I understood it, I think, when it was like the online, like, you know, when everything was like web based and there was kind of still this vibe of like stranger danger of someone that you meet on the internet. And I get that, but I just think for the past like 5-8 years, like it's gone. Like I certainly don't feel like that.
Okay, so there you go. Be proud, people. Own it. We're here. We're queer. We met online. Get used to it.
All right, so what do you look at first when you're judging an online match? Picture, bio, name, age.
Picture, like without a doubt, and then probably follow it with age. I think it's always like a important, I don't know, it's just like a bit of context building of like, where might you be in life relative to me? And then I kind of have like a window. Like, I honestly don't know. I'm 31. I don't know what I would talk to someone who is 18 about.
Their homework.
But that is not to say that I would definitely rule them out. Like, you know, if they had some really cool picture with some interesting things, and I might be like, yeah, okay, yeah, mabes. I don't know. Yeah, I think like picture one and then age second.
Yeah, I think that's very valid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. Have you ever been catfished?
Yeah, like all the time when I was using these other platforms. Like it was insane, and that was why I made it in the first place, because I was like, this is just crazy. Like, I can see you're not even trying to pretend to be someone else. Like, you're just being a dude, like saying to me that, like, sending me gross pictures and saying that I haven't met the right person yet. Well, so that's actually technically not a catfish, so take that back. But I definitely have been catfished, yeah.
Yeah. One of my friends was on an app, and someone told them that they were catfishing them. They were like, these aren't my pictures. Like, in the bio, it said, these aren't my pictures, but I would be bold enough to say I'm prettier in person.
Oh, yeah.
So I said,
oh, my God.
No.
So you picked pictures that you thought were less attractive than you?
No sense.
Very, very strange. People are being even more straightforward about being a catfish. They're trying to get on the show. I don't know.
At least be good at it, right? Come on.
All right, but for our listeners, remember, you can give us your own answers to this episode's Q&A questions on our Twitter at LesHangoutPod.
And Robyn, do you want to tell people where they can find you or where they can download her?
Yeah, so you can download her in the App Store and the Play Store. And you can find us everywhere on the interwebs. Most socials, our handle is Her Social App. And on the webs as well.
You can also find us on all of the other interweb things like Instagram and Facebook, where we are also at Let's Hang Out Pod.
Or you can email us at leshangoutpod@gmail.com.
You can check out our website at letshangoutpod.com.
And if you're liking listening to our podcast, we would appreciate it if you would rate and review us on the iTunes store. It really helps us to get more listeners and get more queer women connected, because that's what we're all here for, right?
And get awesome guests like Robyn, which thank you again so much for doing this with us. We're so happy to have had you here.
Some really fun chatting to you guys. Thanks for having me.
If you want to follow us individually, also, best place to find me is at LSH Foster on Twitter.
And the best place to find me is at LEB2792 on Twitter and Instagram.
And with that, I'm Lee.
And I'm Ellie. And let's hang out again soon.
Let's hang out.
Ladies and gentlemen.
What are you doing?
What do you mean? I'm making
Just keep it simple.
I'm making the promo.
Just keep it simple. Just say, hey, we're the Brav Bros. Two guys that talk about Bravo.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we're the Brav Bros.
No.
Oh.
Dude, stop with the voice. Just keep it simple.
I've seen promos on TV, dude. This is how you get the fans engaged. This is how you get listeners. We're trying to get listeners here. If we just say, oh, we're two dudes that talk about Bravo, people are going to get tired of it already. We need some oomph.
All right, then fine. Let's try to do it with your voice.
Brav Bros.
Good job.